From the start, our relationship was predictable and routine. Amy and I met at a work event, bonding over shared experiences with life, marriage, and navigating blended families. When we got married, it felt like everything fell into place. We both had kids from previous relationships, so building a family took some work, but we managed, or so I thought. As time went on, we settled into a routine of raising the kids and focusing on our careers. Life had its challenges, but we always made time to catch up over dinner, even after the kids moved out. We had a life filled with shared responsibilities, vacations, and support for each other's struggles. Everything seemed fine, until the night Amy confessed. It was a typical evening, just the two of us having dinner. I'd made stir-fry since she was late from a school event, which was unusual. We always had dinner together, a tradition we kept to stay connected. Halfway through refilling my coffee, I realized I hadn't fully heard what Amy had just said. She was staring at me, waiting for my response. "What?" I asked, confused. "I don't get it. You're what?" "I've been seeing Cody," she said quickly. "The new gym teacher at school, Cody Bakerfield. You've met him." "I know who Cody is," I replied, feeling uneasy. "So you're seeing him? What does that mean?" Amy sighed. "We've become friends. I've been having lunch with him, and after school we've been going out sometimes." "Going out?" I asked, baffled. "Are you having an affair?" "Yes," she said, watching me closely. I stared in disbelief. "Yes, what? You're having an affair?" "Yes," she repeated, nodding solemnly. "Cliff, I'm telling you because I love and respect you. I always have." "Respect me? Love me?" I gasped. "It's true," she insisted. "You've always been my number one. Marrying you was the best thing that ever happened to me. I love you so much. I just couldn't keep seeing him without telling you." I stared at her, hoping this was some kind of joke. Amy loves me as much as I love her. She couldn't really be having an affair, but she didn't take it back. I was lost. "I don't even know what to say, Amy. I'm so confused." "Don't feel bad, Cliff," she said. "Yes, I've been seeing Cody, but he's just a friend. I don't love him. It hasn't changed anything between us." I clenched my jaw, still in shock. "How can you say you love me?" "I do love you," she insisted. "We have a great marriage, and I'll always value that. But I need other male friends, too." "I've never had a problem with your male friends," I replied. "I know, and I appreciate that. Cody's just a friend. But he's younger and makes me feel like a teenager again sometimes." "Stop," I shouted. My patience snapped. "I don't want to hear the details of your affair. Spare me." Amy, seeing my anger, softened her tone. "I'm sorry, honey. I just wanted to be honest. Yes, I'm seeing Cody, but no one knows. We've been careful. And that's supposed to make me feel better? I know it doesn't. I just want you to understand, Cliff. Cody will never replace you. He's just a fun distraction. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just couldn't hide it anymore." Seething, I repeated her words. "A fun guy? A distraction? Something I'll never miss? You selfish, conniving—" I spat out, my face burning with rage. "How could you?" She let me vent. "I guess I deserve that." I couldn't take any more. I stood up so fast my chair tipped over. Without a word, I stormed out of the room. "Where are you going, Cliff?" Amy called. "Don't leave, please." "I need to think," I shot back. "Give me a minute." I walked out the back door, leaving her behind. I stormed out onto the deck, furious and trying to catch my breath. An affair? She's cheating on me. The disrespect made my blood boil. I pounded the railing, trying to calm down. I'm usually pretty level-headed, but hearing my wife talk about her infidelity was pushing me over the edge. For years, I'd relied on my calm demeanor as an accountant, keeping cool even with anxious clients. But this was personal. My wife of over 20 years was telling me she was seeing a younger guy from work. I'd met that guy, Cody, at a school event. Amy introduced him as a casual friend, and I foolishly believed her. Now I know the truth. My mind raced with images of what she'd said. I took deep breaths, knowing storming back in and yelling wouldn't help. I had to stay calm and figure out a way to handle this. Yelling would only make her dig in, and that wouldn't get me the information I needed. I needed details to understand the full scope of this. After about 10 minutes, I felt my heart rate return to normal. I walked back inside to face Amy, who was nervously fiddling with her coffee cup. As I sat down, she glanced up at me, but I raised my hand to stop her from speaking. "Let's restart this," I said calmly, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm shocked, Amy. I never expected this." "You don't have to be, Cliff," she responded, her voice soft. I raised my hand again to cut her off. Wait, what's your plan here? You think I'll just forgive and forget? You've been seeing someone behind my back and I'm supposed to move on like nothing happened? Amy shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Well, not exactly. I knew you'd be upset, but I didn't want to keep you in the dark anymore. I muttered under my breath, Jesus, so what did that slick guy say when you told him you were going to tell me? He thought it was for the best, she replied hesitantly. That's what he said. Not exactly, Amy clarified. Cody's not a bad guy, Cliff. He feels terrible about sneaking around. We both do. Really? Yes. Neither of us wants to ruin our marriage, she said, looking at me with a pleading expression. I was about to tell her she needed to end the affair when she sighed, her face hardening with determination. This is tough, but now that you know, I want to keep seeing him. Not too often, just occasionally, and after school hours. I was stunned by her audacity and could only manage a sarcastic, oh, of course. We sat there in silence, the tension thick between us, until she finally spoke again, looking pained. I'm so sorry, honey. I know this is hard, but he's a nice guy. We have fun together, and I do like him, but it won't affect us. You've got to be kidding, I said incredulously. No, it won't change anything between us. It hasn't so far, and it won't in the future. He's been a good friend to me, and honestly, I think he's been good for our marriage too. Really? You're out of your mind. Cliff, think about it logically. Remember how tense things were last year. You even called me out for being difficult. Well, I was. Our marriage was in a rut when I first started seeing him, she explained. Oh, great, so he's a marriage counselor now? I shot back sarcastically. She ignored the sarcasm. Cody helped me adjust my attitude. I know you've noticed the change. We're more than friends, but I don't need to see him often. Just occasionally when you're busy. I love you, Cliff. I want to grow old with you. You know that. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So you're not ending the affair? You want me to accept this? It will end eventually, she assured me. He's younger, and we have different interests. Our feelings will fizzle out over time, just not right now. You're crazy, I said, unable to mask my disbelief. Please, Cliff, nothing between us will change. I'm still the same loving wife I've always been. We'll continue our relationship as usual. You haven't noticed anything different, have you? I hated to admit it, but she was right. I never suspected the reason behind the recent spike in our Zek's life. When we first started dating, Amy and I were very active, but over the years, as the kids got older, things slowed down. Even after they left for college, we never fully returned to our old rhythm. I didn't see it as a problem, figuring most couples our age weren't tearing up the sheets every night. But now, knowing what I did, I realized Amy was right. We had gotten back on track. I couldn't deny I was happy that we were now making love several times a week, just like when the kids were younger. When she asked if I'd noticed any difference while she was seeing Cody, the truth was, I hadn't. When I didn't answer, she spoke for me. Of course not, she said confidently. Even while seeing Cody, I've been here for you. We have a great Zek's life for our age, and I love it just as much as you do. Cody is just a small part of my life, nothing more. We've had a stable 20-year marriage, and you want to continue that? I asked, incredulous. Of course. I love you, she said. But how can I stay married to a cheating strumpet? I shot back. Her expression hardened. I'm not a strumpet, she said sharply. This is the first time I've ever cheated, and I've never been with a man I didn't have feelings for. So, you have feelings for him? I asked, outraged. How do I know you're not just waiting to replace me with him? It's not like that, Cliff, she insisted. You're my husband, and I love you. I'll never leave you. I just need some time with Cody, not all the time and not forever. Just until this urge is out of my system. It won't affect us, just like it hasn't for the past few months. I sat in silence, my mind racing with images of what she'd been doing with him. She kept talking, trying to justify her affair. It's better for us in the long run, Cliff. I've been more relaxed, more uninhibited in the bedroom. You've noticed, right? I haven't turned you down, and I've let you do things you've wanted for years. Since being with Cody, I've been able to fully express myself. No more hang-ups. You must have felt the difference. She was right again, and it infuriated me. Our Zek's life used to be pretty straightforward. Nothing wild, but satisfying. Amy was a generous lover, and we both enjoyed ourselves. But over the last few months, she'd become incredibly passionate. I thought it was because the kids had left or maybe a hormonal shift as she aged. Now I realized it was her affair with that young guy from school fueling the change. It was depressing. I'd always felt lucky to have her. Amy was a Zexy divorcee, 4 years older, with 2 kids when we met. I fell for her right away, and we clicked. I was happy to marry her and raise her kids as my own. Her first husband was a deadbeat who abandoned them, and I stepped in as the only father her children knew. After 20 years of what I thought was a happy marriage, she dropped this bomb on me. "Say something, Cliff," she urged, watching me closely. "I know you're upset, but I don't want you to feel hurt. Let me help make this easier. You're still my number one." She stood up, smirking, and moved toward me seductively. "I'm here for you, baby. Let me know what you need." When she tried to sit on my lap, I pushed her away. She looked hurt but didn't press it. I stood up abruptly and left the room. As I stormed out, she barely had time to say, "Wait!" before I was out the door and into my car. Driving aimlessly, I realized I needed space before doing something I'd regret. I considered heading to a bar to drown my anger. I found one nearby, parked, and ordered a beer, trying to clear my head. Later, I drove home with a plan. When I walked in, Amy was on her cell phone. She looked startled and whispered quickly, "I have to go. He's back. Bye." By the tense look on her face, I suspected she was talking to her boyfriend. It stung, but I stayed calm. I needed to follow the bartender's advice, gather all the information tonight before deciding what to do next. I sat back down at the kitchen table, the cold coffee cup still in front of me. Amy looked serious. "Cliff," she started, but I interrupted her. "Hold on. I think I need to know how this affair started. Maybe it'll help me process this. So, how long, Amy? How long have you been breaking our vows?" She sighed. "Not long. We've been friends for a while, but it only turned physical a few months ago." She explained how Cody made her feel special and helped her explore her sexuality. She seemed relieved as she shared. "So what now?" I asked. "You've been lying and cheating for months. How am I supposed to feel? You've been with a guy barely older than our kids, and I had no clue. You expect me to applaud your secrecy?" "No, Cliff," she said, reaching for my hand. I tensed but didn't pull away. "I'm ashamed for deceiving you. I hated lying to you, but we were careful. I didn't want you to find out. Cody never pressured me. He was okay with seeing me occasionally and didn't want to ruin our marriage." "That clearly changed," I said bitterly. Amy squeezed my hand. "No matter what, I love you. Cody's a good guy, but he could never replace you." I told him we'd never be more than friends with benefits, and he agreed. We were discreet, even having lunch with other coworkers to avoid suspicion. No one ever knew. "I'm sure you were a clever cheater," I snapped. Amy gave me a sad nod. On the outside, I was the faithful wife with a great job and friends. Inside, I was lying. I always saw myself as honest, but this affair made me hate myself. Our marriage is precious to me, and Cody was just temporary. My feelings for him don't compare to what I feel for you. I started to lose my sense of self because of the deceit. The solution is simple. Stop cheating. "Yes, but I'm not sure I can right now," she admitted. "I'd like to think I could just end it with Cody and everything would go back to normal, but I doubt it." "Why?" I asked, frustrated. "We've built a great life, raised 2 kids, and now have time to enjoy each other. If you love me like you say, giving him up shouldn't be a problem." She exhaled sharply and gave me a worried look. It might have been easy to stop at first, but now I'm not sure. "Of course, I love you, Cliff, but these past few months have shown me another side of life, and I've learned more about myself and my needs. I don't know if I can just go back to how things were, even if I wanted to. I've tried to be the same loving wife, but being with Cody has made me see other possibilities." I yanked my hand away, struggling to stay calm. "Other options, huh?" I snapped. "You can't stop screwing him? Is that it? I was good enough to marry and raise your kids, but now some young guy shows up and I'm not good enough anymore?" "That's not it at all," she said quickly. "You've always been the best husband and father I could have asked for. But after so many years of marriage, I've changed. We both have. It's just natural, not bad. People evolve." I glared at her, speechless. She continued softly, "Cliff, I don't want to hurt you. I know it may not seem like it, but it's true. We're going to stay together and nothing between us will change. I'll make sure of that. I love our life, our marriage, our kids, but I also enjoy this friendship with Cody. He makes me feel things I haven't felt in years. I hope you can understand and love me enough to let me have this." "You witch," I whispered under my breath. If she heard, she didn't react. "It's not a bad thing, Cliff. I'm always here for you. I just want things to stay as they are a little longer, not forever, just until I'm done with this. Then I'll end it with Cody and be yours completely again. I'm being honest because I don't want any more secrets. If you let me do this, I promise I'll make it up to you. I'll always be a good wife, and no one will ever know. Just give me this, and I'll reward you for the rest of our lives." This conversation was spiraling. I had started the night feeling great about my marriage, and within minutes I had gone from a happy husband to a miserable, betrayed one. My wife now had a lover, someone younger and no doubt more exciting than me. It took me a few minutes to gather myself. This was a lot to process. I thought I could reason with her, make her end the affair, but it was clear now. She had no plans to stop. She just wanted my permission to keep exploring her feelings. This was classic cheater's nonsense. "You've been lying for months, and you're so good at it that I never suspected a thing. Now you admit to all the lies and cheating, promising to keep me as your husband. But how can I trust you again? You've lied not only to me, but to our kids, our friends, everyone. What's stopping you from changing your mind again? Maybe about Cody or some other guy in the future?" Amy sighed in frustration because she knew I was right. She looked at me with teary eyes, wanting to argue, but couldn't. "I'd never do that, and you know it," she finally said. "You've got some nerve," I said bitterly. "Acting so entitled, throwing your affair in my face. Why shouldn't I just leave you? I don't want a cheating wife. I should divorce you and be done with it." I expected those words to hurt, but Amy's expression softened. She looked at me with unexpected compassion and spoke with a new edge. "I know this is hard right now, but divorce? That wouldn't be in your best interest, Cliff." "Why? At least I'd have my pride." Her pitying look was infuriating. "A divorce would hurt both of us, Cliff." "At least I wouldn't have to deal with your affair." "That's true," she said calmly. "But I don't think you'd be happy with a divorce. Neither of us would." Her gaze locked onto mine. "We live in a no-fault state. I'd get half of everything. The house, savings, retirement. And because you adopted Martha and Robbie, you'd have to help with their college costs. Plus, there's alimony. Since I don't earn much as a teacher, you'd be expected to support me. It could be a lot." I guess she and her lover had thought this through. "So you'd take me to the cleaners," I said flatly. "I don't want to," she said. "I want to keep living and loving you like before. But if you divorce me, you'll owe a lot, and I'd still be free to see Cody. It'd be better for us to stay married. You'd have me as your loving wife, and we can keep having great sex. No one would ever know. I'll always keep you as my number one." Then she added in a sympathetic tone, "I'll always be thankful for your open-mindedness about this, and I'll give you whatever you want. I just want some time with Cody. Not much, just a little. The rest of the time, I'll focus on making you happy." "I was happy before you dumped this on me," I said bitterly. "Now I know I'm just a fool, putting up with my unfaithful wife and that idiot you work with." "It's not like that, Cliff." I started to walk away and she called out, "Wait, don't leave, honey. We need to talk about this more. Please." "There's nothing to discuss, Amy. You've made your ultimatum. Now I have to decide if I can accept it." "There's nothing to worry about," she cried. "Nothing between us will change, I promise. I don't want you to think about anything except how much I love you for giving me this freedom. I'll do anything to make you happy." "Then end the affair right now." She sighed in frustration, looked down and whispered, "I can't do that just yet, honey. I can't stop right now." "Then there's nothing more to talk about. This conversation is over. I've heard enough. You've told me how you feel, and nothing I say will change your mind. At the same time, I'll never believe another word you say. I'm done trying to reason with a liar and a cheat." I went to the den and turned on the TV. I didn't care what was on. I was still reeling from the conversation. I thought about going to a hotel and leaving without a word. I was so angry. I wanted to hurt her like she hurt me, but I knew walking out and getting drunk wasn't my style. Maybe I'm too rational or too boring to do something reckless. I felt numb and exhausted. It was like a nightmare. How could she do this to me? I watched TV for another hour. A game was on, but I couldn't tell you a single detail. I heard her leave the kitchen. At some point, the sliding glass doors opened and closed when she went onto the back deck. I guess she was calling someone for privacy, probably her boyfriend telling him how our talk went. She came back in a while later and entered the den. I was in the recliner, so she couldn't sit next to me. She stood close, watching me. "Are you okay, Cliff?" she asked sweetly. "I know this is a lot to take in, honey, and I want to help you." I glanced over and saw her give me a strange smile. "Do you want to talk more, or do you want to go to bed?" she asked. "You know I'll do anything to make you feel better. I really want to." I was disgusted, offering me Zex to ease my pain. Pity Zex for her poor old husband. Probably her boyfriend's idea. Sloppy seconds for the clueless husband. How cliché. The thought made me angry. I ignored her offer and went upstairs to bed. I was furious with my wife and considered sleeping in the guest room, but I decided she was the one who should leave. Why should I give up my bed? I got undressed quickly and climbed into bed. A few minutes later, Amy came in. She saw I was already under the covers, so she went to our bathroom and changed into a sexy nightgown she knew I liked. She turned off the light and slid into bed without a word, moving toward me. Knowing she was cheating, I had no intention of being physical engaged with her. I turned on my side, away from her, hoping she'd get the hint. But she moved closer, tried to spoon me, and reached for my chest to turn me toward her. I pushed her hand away. "Want to fool around, honey?" she whispered softly. Suddenly, a disgusting image came to mind. I pictured my slender 51-year-old wife in Cody's bed, lying on her back, getting vigorously screwed. I imagined her grabbing him and smiling as he took what was once mine. Without turning, I pulled her hand off me and said, "Never again." "But honey, I know you're upset. I just wanted to—" I flipped over and glared at her. She pulled back, startled by the anger in my eyes. Even in the dark, I'm sure she could sense my resentment. "Of course I'm upset, damn it," I spat. "I just found out I've been a fool for months. If you need Zex so badly, go call Cody. I'm sure your young stud can handle your needs." Amy was shocked. I don't think she expected me to reject her like that. I stared at her for a moment, then turned back toward the wall. She didn't say a word and didn't bother me anymore. I had a hard time falling asleep, and I knew she did too. The next morning, I woke up before the alarm. I barely slept and was still bitter about the conversation. Amy was in bed, but she wasn't asleep. I took a quick shower, and when I came out, she had already left the room. She had to be at school an hour earlier than I did. I've always been an early riser, even though I didn't need to get up early. I used to get up before her and sometimes make breakfast. Not anymore. Not after finding out she was screwing that idiot. I got dressed and cleaned up faster than ever. When I left the room, I saw her downstairs in the kitchen, making breakfast for a change. "Good morning, Cliff," she called out sweetly. "I've made bacon and eggs for you, and there's toast, too. Want some coffee, dear?" I ignored her greeting and her offers. To hell with her and her boyfriend. Without even glancing her way, I walked straight out of the house. "Cliff, wait, please," I heard her shout as I slammed the door, got in my car, and sped down the street. At work, I tried to focus, but I couldn't get her and that young idiot out of my head. I couldn't concentrate all day. Amy called me several times. I didn't answer, letting her messages go to voicemail, and deleted them without listening. She sent me some cute texts, which I skimmed before deleting them too. With all the calls and texts, I couldn't stop thinking about her. I made several careless mistakes while reviewing work and decided to take the afternoon off. I called a lawyer for a consultation. He was an older guy and saw me right away. What Amy had told me about divorce seemed to be true. I'd be screwed emotionally and financially. She'd walk away well off with a young stud while I'd be left financially strapped, supporting her. Since I never cheated, I didn't have anyone to ease the heartache. I'd likely end up broke and alone in a small one-bedroom apartment. Not a pleasant future. If I stayed with her, it wasn't much better. Sure, I'd still get Zex. She emphasized that. But it would be sloppy seconds and pity Zex at best. It was clear this younger guy was satisfying her in ways I couldn't. At 47, there's no way I could compete in bed with a good-looking, athletic 30-year-old or however old he is. And if I stayed and tolerated her affair, the courts would view it as me accepting her cheating. I wouldn't even be able to claim infidelity in a divorce. Worse yet, trying to have my own affair to compete with her would be a losing battle. Plenty of guys were eager to be with her, even younger ones. Cody was proof of that. At 51, Amy still looked good, with short dark hair, a trim body, and a friendly personality. I was an average-looking older guy with a receding hairline and carrying a bit of extra weight. Sure, I had a good job, and I wasn't bad-looking for my age, but how many women were interested in a middle-aged, married guy? Probably not many. The contrast in our dating prospects was depressing. She was still attractive, and I was not. After a frustrating day, I went to a bar for dinner. I stayed as late as possible, but I'd never been into the bar scene, and being there alone was boring. I wanted to be at home with my wife, drinking a beer and relaxing by the TV, not drowning my sorrows at a bar with other lonely guys. When I finally got home, Amy was already in bed. It wasn't even late, but I guess she gave up on waiting for me. Not that I cared. I woke up early after another rough night of sleep. I left the house at dawn and went to Denny's for breakfast. I spent some time driving around and window shopping, just wasting time. When I finally went back home, I wondered if my cheating wife was there or off with that young idiot. Turned out she was home. She must have heard my car pull up because she opened the door and smiled when I got there. When she tried to kiss me, I turned my head and her lips landed on my cheek. She looked surprised when I pulled away and walked past her. I went to the den to avoid her for a while. Later, when I came out, I saw her in the kitchen. I grabbed a beer and headed to the living room to watch TV. A few minutes later, Amy joined me with a glass of wine. "Mind if I sit with you?" she asked, sounding pleasant. I noticed she had changed into a tight tank top that showed off her arms and shoulders and was wearing skimpy shorts. I could smell her spicy perfume. "Suit yourself." I was sitting on the sofa, so I scooted over to give her space. She deliberately sat right next to me. During the show, she became more affectionate. I could tell the wine was making her a bit tipsy, maybe even a little aroused, but she wasn't drunk. As she moved closer to my neck, I chose that moment to say, "I need to use the bathroom, Amy." I gently pushed her away, got up, and left the room. As I walked off, I saw her give me a strange look because I almost never turned down her advances. After finishing in the bathroom, I didn't go back to the living room. Instead, I went into the kitchen. "You coming back?" she called. "This show's getting good." "Not right now." I purposely stayed in the kitchen for a while. When I figured enough time had passed, I grabbed another beer and headed straight to the den, shutting the door behind me. As expected, Amy opened the door a few minutes later. "What are you up to?" she asked with a smile. "Just catching up on some work." "You don't want to watch the show?" "Better not." "Oh, okay." She lingered there while I focused on my computer. I didn't look at her, but I could sense her frustration. She was clearly puzzled. After such a nice dinner, she probably hoped things would start to improve between us. A minute later, I felt her hands on my shoulders. "What are you looking at now?" she asked, glancing at the computer screen and pretending to show interest. I had some paperwork open from an account I was working on, a complex financial spreadsheet she wouldn't understand. "I got busy on Friday and didn't finish this," I explained. "I figured you wouldn't mind if I missed the show." "Oh, of course not." I shivered when she began massaging my neck. She knew I liked having my head and neck rubbed, and she made the massage as suggestive as possible. I could smell the booze on her breath when she leaned down and kissed my head affectionately. I just ignored her. It took Amy another 10 minutes to realize I wasn't interested in her attempts to get my attention. Finally, she gave up and headed back to the living room. "Could you shut the door, please?" I called after her. "Okay," she responded, pulling the door closed behind her. I sighed in relief. Despite everything, Amy still had a way of turning me on, even after all these years. She knew exactly what to do to get a reaction from me, and it was working. But I was determined not to give in to her charms. I had no intention of sharing her attention with another man. It took me 3 hours to finish my work. When I finally went upstairs to bed, I found her already asleep, wearing a revealing nightgown with matching underwear. I figured she had planned to seduce me, but the wine must have made her too tired, and she dozed off. Sunday morning, I got up before Amy and avoided her all day, just like I had the day before. On Monday, her car wouldn't start, so I had to drive her to school. She asked if I could pick her up afterward. Throughout the day, I got several calls from her school. I figured she wanted to tell me she'd arranged a ride home, probably with her boyfriend. I ignored the calls. Determined to avoid that scenario, I left work early and arrived at her school before her last class ended. I waited as the students trickled out of the room. When I walked into the classroom, Amy looked surprised and not particularly happy. "Hey, honey, ready to go home?" I asked, trying to sound cheerful. She gave me a sharp look. "I've been calling you all day, Cliff. Why didn't you answer?" "Sorry, I was busy," I replied nonchalantly. "I wanted to tell you I already arranged a ride home." "Oh, really? Well, no matter. I'm here now, so let's go," I said, brushing off her irritation. At that moment, a tall, athletic guy with dark hair walked into the room, moving confidently toward my wife like he expected her to greet him. I recognized him immediately. Her boyfriend, Cody. I'd seen him before, but hadn't paid much attention at the time. Now, up close, he looked even younger than I remembered, more like a college frat boy than a teacher. He was wearing sneakers, shorts, and a t-shirt that showed off his muscular arms and legs. He was an a-hole, but I could see why Amy was attracted to him. Amy's eyes widened when she saw him, and Cody looked confused. "Oh, Cody, she stammered. "I was just telling Cliff that she already has a ride home," I said, finishing her sentence. I kept my cool since I expected Cody to show up. He seemed surprised to see me. When he recognized me, he smiled smugly and glanced between Amy and me. "Oh, hi," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Cody Bakerfield." I ignored it and replied coolly, "Yeah, I know who you are." Trying to ease the tension, Amy said nervously, "Cody, this is Cliff, my husband. You've met him before." The young man's confused expression softened as he remembered me. "Oh, right, Cliff Wilson. I remember. Nice to see you again." "I'm sure it is," I replied coldly. "We met at Parents' Night a few months back. Amy speaks highly of you." "Not highly enough, I guess," I added, throwing a wary glance at Amy, who looked like she was holding her breath. "Amy, let's go," I said, wrinkling my nose as if something smelled bad. Amy began gathering her things as Cody turned to me. "Excuse me for a minute, Mr. Wilson. Can I call you Cliff?" I scowled and ignored his question. "What do you want?" "Just a minute of your time, Cliff. I know there's some tension between us, and I get that, but it doesn't have to be this way. Amy has told you about our friendship." So I just want you to know I don't have any hard feelings toward you. I respect the strong, loving relationship you have with your wife. Is that why you're screwing her?" I asked. Across the room, I heard Amy gasp in shock. Cody nodded sympathetically. "Yes, it's true. Amy and I are close friends, and we've expressed that friendship closely. But that doesn't mean we don't respect you or your role in her life. Neither of us wants to damage your marriage or your family. We can only be friends and nothing more. She's always said she loves you and only you." I thought, this guy's a smooth-talking idiot. Cody kept smiling as he continued. "I hope you don't resent my friendship with Amy. She's had a positive influence on everyone around her, including me. Once things escalated between us, we both realized we should have come to you before anything happened. That was entirely my fault. She behaved properly, and I took things further than I should have." "So you admit you seduced her?" I asked bitterly. "In a way, yes. She's an amazing woman, and I got a little infatuated. Because of my lack of self-control, I acted unprofessionally. But believe me, I never intended to hurt you. In fact, I appreciate you letting her work here so she can continue being a role model for the students. Her friendship has meant a lot to me, and I'll always value it." What a load of crap. I couldn't even respond. I glanced from this idiot to my wife, who was watching him with rapt attention. Her eyes sparkled like she was impressed with his respectful attitude. "So, if I asked you to stop sleeping with her, what would you say?" He shrugged. "I understand your concerns. I'd probably feel the same in your position. But as for ending our friendship, I'd leave that decision to her. Amy is a smart, passionate woman. If she doesn't want to see me anymore, I'll respect that. But if she does, I don't know how I could say no to her." I couldn't bring myself to hate this guy, despite how much I wanted to. I appreciated his honesty, but despised him all the same. As reasonable as he sounded, the bottom line was that unless I physically forced him out of the picture, he'd continue sleeping with my wife, whether I liked it or not. I looked away and saw Amy and Cody exchanging glances. I hated the adoring look on her face. She was old enough to be his mother, but around him, she acted like a teenage girl with a crush. Whatever feelings she once had for me were now overshadowed by her obsession with her young, attractive boyfriend. His slick words left me deflated. Sure, I could have punched him, maybe even landed a couple of good hits, but he was in great shape and would probably wipe the floor with me. That would have made me feel even more foolish than I already did. Feeling like a complete fool, I pushed past him and walked out the door. As I left, I heard Amy and Cody exchange a few hushed words. She quickly followed after me. "Cliff, wait up, honey," she called as her heels clicked on the hard floor. I hurried toward my car, not wanting to be anywhere near her. The whole conversation had left me feeling weak and humiliated. It was clear how much Amy cared for him. There was no way I could compete with a young, charming guy like Cody. I hated him for seducing my naive wife, but I was even more upset with her. Amy was quiet during the drive home. She said a few kind things, but for the most part, she just stared out the window, probably thinking about the scene that had just unfolded. I wasn't sure what she thought of Cody now, likely even more impressed. I knew my standing had taken a big hit. I came off as weak, lost, and hesitant, while Cody confidently spouted nonsense about his respect for me and admiration for my wife. What a joke. When we got home, I trudged upstairs to my bedroom, feeling more like 67 than 47. Amy could see I was depressed and tried to cheer me up, but it was pointless. She even suggested giving me a back rub and maybe more to help me sleep. I wasn't remotely interested in her touch. She gave me a sad smile as she changed into her nightgown and lay beside me in bed. The next night, I moved my clothes into the guest room. Amy was clearly disappointed. She argued with me to stay, telling me, "You're my husband and you belong by my side." She even promised me anything I wanted sexually if I stayed with her at night. I ignored her, and soon I was sleeping in the small guest bed. Amy went to bed that night in tears. The rest of the week passed in a blur. We went through the motions, getting up, going to work, eating dinner, and heading to bed separately. We didn't talk about the affair, and neither of us made plans for the weekend. Friday and Saturday nights were spent sitting silently in front of the TV, followed by sleeping in different rooms. I never knew if she was still seeing Cody. She didn't tell me, but I suspected she was. Even if I came home on time, she had plenty of opportunities to meet him after school. He didn't live far from the school, so it was easy for them to spend time together. Amy did her best to hide the affair, but I wasn't an idiot. After seeing the way she looked at him in the classroom, I was sure Cody was getting more from her than I ever did. Amy knew I was depressed. She stayed friendly, often asking if I needed help with anything. In the evenings, she sometimes wore revealing outfits and gave me suggestive looks, hoping I'd forgive her and restart our relationship. We kept our conversations light and casual, but the tension between us was undeniable. A couple of days after our confrontation, I came home feeling exhausted. Amy's car was in the driveway, but there was another one I didn't recognize. Inside, I found Amy and a woman lounging on the back deck in their swimsuits, sipping wine. Amy got up to meet me. "Hey, Cliff," she said cheerfully. She tried to kiss me, but I turned my cheek, which she seemed to expect by now. "Tough day?" she asked sweetly. "Not really," I replied, not wanting to talk. "Come out back and meet my friend Susan," she said, and I reluctantly agreed. Amy introduced us. Susan was short, with blonde hair, a curvy figure, and seemed friendly enough. We all chatted for a while, then ordered takeout and ate in the kitchen. The women drank wine, getting giggly as the night went on. When I said I was heading to bed, Susan teased, "Already? It's not even 11 o'clock. Amy laughed. "He gets tired early now." They both laughed, but I was annoyed. That night, I had an intense dream, but when I woke up, I was shocked. The sensation hadn't stopped. I looked down to see Susan giving me non-classic Zex. I bolted upright, pushing her away. Amy was lying next to me, smiling. "What the hell is going on?" I shouted. "We're just trying to make you feel good," Amy said softly. Susan added, "Come back. Let me finish. You'll love it." "Please, Cliff," Amy whispered. "I want you to be happy." "Screw you." I was furious. They had taken advantage of me while I was asleep. I stormed to the kitchen, splashed water on my face, and when I turned around, they were both standing in the doorway, now in robes. "What were you thinking?" I demanded. Amy spoke first. "We just wanted to help you." "Yes," Susan added. "Amy told me about your situation. I thought I could help." "I don't need any help," I shouted. "Everything was fine until Amy started cheating on me. She said nothing would change, but everything has." "I'm sick of it," Susan quietly replied. "I know, and I don't think she should have done that, but it's her choice." "Yeah, look where that got us," I snapped. "I know she doesn't want to hurt you," Susan said. "Easy for you to say. How do you think I feel, knowing my wife isn't satisfied with me? That she needs some younger guy to make her happy?" "All right, enough," Amy snapped. "I get it. We made a mistake. No need to insult us." "So now I'm the crazy one?" I shot back. "I'm out of here. I thought about leaving for a hotel, but decided not to. I wasn't going to let Amy chase me out of my own house. Instead, I locked myself in the guest room, blocking the door with a dresser. If they tried to sneak in again, I'd be ready. The next day, I realized I couldn't take it anymore. During lunch, I went to my lawyer and told him to proceed with the divorce. After explaining how my wife and her friend tried to ambush me while I slept, he suggested we file a restraining order to get her out of the house and keep her away from me. I agreed. 2 days later, Amy was served at school. During lunch, the process server walked right into the teacher's break room and handed her the papers in front of her coworkers. Then he served Cody, that idiot, for alienation of affection. After that, he went to the principal's office and served him for allowing Amy and Cody's affair during school hours on school property. We didn't have proof of that last charge, but we planned to gather witnesses about the exercise class and hoped Amy had left out some details. I was sure some teachers suspected their affair. Time would tell. Either way, it was clear they were cheating, and I was the one suffering for it. I got a call at work right after lunch. "Damn you, Cliff," Amy screamed. "You fool! I told you what would happen if we divorced." It can't be worse than living with a cheater and a sleaze. I'm done with you and your loser boyfriend. You both can go to hell. I get why you're mad at me, she said. You've made that clear many times. But did you really have to drag Cody into this? He's a good guy. Having this on his record will hurt his career. Tough. He should have thought of that before sleeping with a coworker. He's as much of a dirtbag as you are and deserves whatever comes his way. And don't even think about bringing your friends to the house anymore. You're not welcome either. The restraining order makes that clear, and I've changed the locks. No more bringing your girlfriends over to ambush me. You're crazy! It wasn't like that at all, she yelled. Most men would have loved the chance to have 2 women in bed, but not you. I guess 2 sexually eager women are too much for a wimp like you. Susan was right. You're screwed up. Speaking of Susan, is she married? If she is, I'd love to let her husband know what kind of person he's tied to, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Screw you, she snapped. Not anymore, I replied with a laugh. By the way, your clothes are on the driveway. You might want to grab them before it starts raining. If you need anything else, talk to my lawyer. You better not, she began, but I cut her off by hanging up. That night, Amy came by to pick up her clothes. I watched from the window as she arrived with her friend Heidi. She shouted a few curses and flipped me off. I just laughed. With her gone, I felt a huge sense of relief. Her cheating was no longer my problem. The kids called me a few times. Martha was angry with me. She knew about her mother's affair and didn't approve, but asked if I could ever forgive her. I simply said, "No, your mother isn't worth it." Robbie was more understanding. He realized his mom had messed up and didn't blame me for kicking her out, which I appreciated. I reassured both of them that I still loved them and would always be there for them. Thankfully, we still have a good relationship. The lawsuit against the school board didn't go anywhere. Apparently, Amy had been truthful. She never had sex on school property. She and Cody met at his apartment or elsewhere, but never at the school. We couldn't find anyone who even knew they were having an affair, so they'd kept it well hidden. However, the lack of proof didn't save Cody's job. He was let go with a reprimand and soon moved out of the area to avoid the gossip. Amy was also fired. She was bitter and blamed me, shouting during a few phone calls that her work problems were all my fault. She applied to another school, but they found out about the affair and wouldn't hire her. Martha later told me Amy was working as a receptionist at a real estate office in the next town. The divorce took a while to finalize. We had to sell the house because neither of us could afford it alone. I might have been able to, but it was too big for just me anyway. Amy only took a few things when she moved out. I got a 2-bedroom apartment near work and put most of the furniture in storage. Why did I wait so long to divorce her, you might wonder? Well, during those months living together, I quietly drained our joint accounts. Amy never noticed since she was too wrapped up in her affair. After the divorce, I didn't date much. I was cautious around women, and with the kids' school expenses and Amy's alimony, money was tight. I hadn't hidden much from Amy's lawyer, but after the split, I lived frugally, and my finances began to improve. I threw myself into work and am now nearing a promotion. After everything with my wife, I'm a bit hesitant about long-term relationships. I wasn't in a rush to get back into dating. I've met a few nice women through concerned friends. I'm not sure how things will go, but even without a steady relationship, I enjoy meeting women and hope to eventually find companionship with someone who's right for me. One Friday night, I was out with an attractive coworker I had met named Stacy. She's in her late 30s, divorced for a few years, sweet, fun, and good-looking. It was our 3rd date, and we were having dinner across town at a nice restaurant. While enjoying our coffee and dessert, I noticed an older woman at a nearby table. She was painfully thin, with short blonde hair, dining with a much older, frail man who looked to be in his 70s, with only a little gray hair left. At first, I didn't recognize her, but after a second glance, I realized it was my ex-wife, Amy. I mentioned to Stacy that my ex was sitting nearby. Stacy looked over and seemed shocked. "That's your ex-wife?" she asked, amused. "She looks more like your mother than your wife." I explained that she was a few years older than me, 4 to be exact, and she must have had a rough time lately. After we split, I was concerned about how thin she had become, almost too skinny. "Wow," Stacy laughed. "She looks old enough to be your mother, and he looks like her dad. I can't believe she was your wife." I acted unfazed, but inside I was worried about Amy. She wore a sleeveless dress, and I could see her arms were just skin hanging from bones. The wrinkles on her face had deepened a lot since we were together. I didn't tell Stacy, but Amy looked unhealthy. I hoped she was taking care of herself. We didn't talk about her anymore. We finished our meal and were getting ready to leave. Stacy went to use the bathroom, and I waited by the entrance when I felt a tap on my shoulder. "Hello, Cliff," said a familiar voice. "Hi, Amy," I replied. I turned to see her, and I barely recognized her. Amy had aged so much. I wanted to say something polite, like she looked well, but I couldn't bring myself to lie. Instead, I simply said, "It's nice to see you. How are you?" "Oh, not too bad," she replied. Her once sparkling blue eyes had lost their shine, and her face appeared thinner, with a sickly pallor in her cheeks that worried me. "I talk to Martha and Robbie from time to time," I said, trying to fill the silence. "They're doing well in school." "I'm glad to hear that," she responded quietly. "Yes, Martha visits occasionally, but Robbie not as much," I added. We stood there for a moment staring at each other, unsure what to say next. "Well, Amy, I don't want to keep you from your date," I said, trying to move things along. "He's not my date." "Not really," she said vaguely, avoiding my eyes. "Oh, are you still with Cody?" I asked, attempting to sound casual. A shadow crossed her dulled blue eyes, and she looked down for a moment before answering in a raspy voice. "No, Cody and I aren't together anymore. I haven't seen him since a few months after our divorce." She raised her eyes to mine and added softly, "But that's okay. I don't want to see him anyway." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, unsure of how to respond. "Yeah," she whispered, as an awkward silence hung between us. I was about to end the conversation before Stacy returned when Amy spoke again. "Well, it was nice seeing you, Amy," I said, trying to make my exit. "Yes, it was," she agreed, holding my gaze. Then, unexpectedly, she grasped my arm with her frail fingers, her grip surprisingly firm. "You know, Cliff, I'm really sorry about how things turned out between us. You were right about everything," she said, her voice filled with regret. "I was?" I asked, taken aback. "Yeah, Cody wasn't worth it. I see that now," she admitted, her eyes glistening with tears. "Are you married?" she asked, her voice softening. "I saw your date. She's really pretty." "No, I'm not married. Once bitten, twice shy, you know?" I joked, though she didn't laugh. She just looked at me with sad eyes. "Yeah, I get it, honey. You were always the one for me. I knew it back then, but I was too stupid to appreciate it." "Oh, well, I don't know what to say," I replied, feeling increasingly awkward. "Listen, Cliff, if you ever want to talk," she said, slipping a small piece of paper into my hand. Her wrinkled face watched me closely for my reaction. I didn't reject it, and for a brief moment her eyes sparkled like they used to, back when I loved her. "I'd really like to hear from you, Cliff. I know we can never be together again, and I know I ruined that. But I hope you're happy now. I know you weren't happy with me. Your date is beautiful. I hope she realizes how lucky she is to have you." Without waiting for a response, Amy turned and shuffled back to her table. She said something to the older man with her, who glanced at me curiously. Just then, Stacy returned from the restroom. "Ready to go, Cliff?" she asked with a smile. "I sure am," I replied. We left the restaurant arm in arm, and as we passed the trash can by the door, I tossed the scrap of paper Amy had given me into it. That was the last time I saw her. Later, I heard from the kids that she was living with an older man a few towns away, probably the same man I saw at the restaurant. They said her health wasn't good. She had developed diabetes. Fortunately, the man had enough money to take care of her. As for Stacy and me, we never got married. But I'm still doing well, working as an accountant. I see my kids as often as I can, but I don't see their mother. I guess part of me still feels something for Amy, but after everything she put me through, I could never live with her again. And I'm okay with that.